know.
Alright, what's going on guys, Topser here, and in this video I'm going to give you guys a full-on 9.1 balanced Druid PvP guide. My name's Topser and I'm a multi-glad PvPer. I've been playing Boomy for quite a bit now, so I do have some general knowledge on what I'm talking about, and hopefully I can share some of that with you today. So first of all, we're going to go through the talents. I'm going to do this real quick, I'm not going to go in deep or anything. We're going to go through the talents at first, and then we'll talk about the PvP talents, and then we'll talk about the gear stats or what stats you should prioritize, and then we'll talk about what gear you should be running / trinkets and legendaries, of course. And the main topic, the hot topic for this season that everyone's curious about, I got a lot of you asking me this in the comments, and that is what covenant you should be running. So far I'm seeing 3 covenants this season. I see Night Phase, I see Kyrians, and I see Necrolords. And I tried all 3 of these, and I gotta say I really like it because each covenant has a unique different playstyle that adds to the table, and I will get in deep with these covenants and playstyles when we get to the covenants part later on in this video. Either way guys, before we get there, I just want to say a huge thank you for everyone that watched my balanced Druid PvP montage and everyone that liked and commented. I really appreciate you guys, and of course we're doing a giveaway. We're giving away 2 WAV tokens and a $50 PayPal giveaway once we reach 1,000 subscribers, and all you gotta do to enter is like this video and hit that subscribe button. And yeah, we'll get right into talents here guys. I will leave timestamps. If you want to skip ahead to a certain topic that interests you, feel free to do so, and let's get started. So for your level 15 talent, you got Nature's Balance, Warrior of Elune, and Force of Nature. As a Boomy, to put out the most damage, you need to use Star Surge and Starfall. That's your most damaging spells other than your dots. And to get those, you need Astral Power. They are your Astral Power spenders. And to spend, you need Astral Power. And this talent comes in really handy because while in combat, you generate 1 Astral Power every 2 seconds. It might not sound as much, but trust me, when you're PvPing, this really helps out, especially when you're out of combat. You already have 50 Astral Power. So if you're in arenas or something, you could just come out of stealth, root beam someone, and immediately start bursting your kill target. It gives you that 1 extra Star Surge, and of course if you're running other talents, it adds up and you could just keep pumping the Astral Power, or I mean Star Surge, and your Astral Power is going up and up if you're in combat, right? So Nature's Balance is really good talent out of these 3 for damage. Warrior of the Elune I used to like because without this I just felt like Boomies were really boring because it's literally a 4-button class. But if you want the best results, you need to be Nature's Balance. Now Force of Nature only has 1 use in PvP, and that is in RBGs when you're sitting in node or if you're sitting in base as a balanced druid. So in RBGs, balanced druids are the best base sitters other than a rogue because they're both in stealth or can be in stealth for pretty much as long as they want. And if you're running Force of Nature, this is really good for sitting in base because when you're sitting in base, a rogue or a druid, if they're trying to steal your base, let's say a rogue, let's say this is a flag right here and you're sitting in stealth. Let's say a rogue bombs on the flag and starts capping. Now usually you're gonna run in and attack the rogue to stop him from capping, right? If you're a trend, you could just max range in stealth and put your trends on that rogue, and the trends are doing melee to the rogue, preventing him from stopping or preventing him from capping the flag, and this gives you extra time to call for help so your team can rotate to your base and help you out. This is really good if you're sitting in base in RBGs, and if you're doing damage in RBGs or arenas, you always want to be Nature's Balance because this is just a better talent for damage. For your level 25, you have Tiger's Dash, Renewal, and Wild Charge. In the RBG bracket, 99% of the balanced druids use Wild Charge because Wild Charge, again, is a really fun spell. It has a lot of use in each form. On Boomy form, you could literally, leap or backwards leap to someone, and if you're smart with it, you could press your flat button when you leap and you just get extra distance with it. Really good in RBGs. If you want to peel out and help a base, or you can be really quick with it. In bear form, you could charge to someone, rooting them for 4 seconds. In cat form, you leap to someone. In travel form, you literally move up. You literally leap forward 20 yards. This just has a lot of use. And in arenas as well, this is a talent to be with, because right now arenas are really fast paced with all these cleaves running around and one-shotting people. So you definitely want to be wild charged so you can kite them. So you can literally do this and get extra range on them. It's such a short cooldown too, so it's really helpful. It's a 15-second cooldown and it's fun as well. If you're a boomy, definitely play this. Now the only use for renewal is in arenas. Let's say in arenas you're facing that one comp that you're always dying to. For example, like rogue mage or like, you know, jungle, and you just need that one extra defensive, that heal to help you out. You could try renewal, but in most cases wild charge is just better. Definitely play around with these two. My preference is wild charge. Renewal, and based on what situation I'm in, if I'm dying, I could definitely run renewal. Tiger's Dash is just not in the option. I don't even know why this is a talent. This is just really bad. If anything, it shouldn't be a talent because it's that useless. Either way, let's get to level 30. So you got Feral Affinity, Guardian Affinity, and Restoration Affinity. If you are a Balanced Druid, you need to be Guardian Affinity, because in this meta, Balanced Druids are really squishy, and Guardian Affinity give you defensive and offensive CC. So first of all, let's talk about defensive. Your passive is all damage you take is reduced by 6%. Now 6% is quite a bit. And you get Frenzied Regen. Now what Frenzied Regen is, it heals you for 32% over 3 seconds. So every time you bear form, you could press Frenzied Regen. It's a 31-second cooldown and it heals you for 32% over 3 seconds. If you're a Balanced Druid, Frenzied Regen is your #1 defensive. And you also get In-Cap Roar, Incapacitating Roar. I really like this because, you know, you could just roar someone, it puts you in bear form immediately, they're in CC for 3 seconds, and you could follow that up with a clone or something. This In-Cap Roar is really good if you're smart with it. You could use that as an extra interrupt as well, or for extra CC / crowd control. Definitely play Guardian Affinity. This is literally the best talent in this row. So level 35, you got Mighty Bash, Mass Entanglement, and Heart of the Wild. Heart of the Wild is literally out. Don't even think about playing this. This is just bad. I see no use for this in PvP at all. The most used spell in PvP is Mass Entanglement, mainly because Mass Entanglement lines up with your Root Beam as a Balanced Druid. So if you're in arenas or RBGs, especially in arenas, you could Root Beam someone. You could make a macro where you use Mass Entanglements and your Solar Beam on a healer or on DPS to peel, and it literally puts them in CC for 8 seconds every 1 minute. Alright, so when you're root beaming someone, that means that person is silenced. They can't do anything. All they can do is literally get freedomed or Tiger's Lesson or use their trinket. So it's an extra CC. After the root beam, you could, you know, In-Cap Roar into a clone or something. It's literally the best crowd control that Balanced Druids have. And also Mass Entanglement is a 30-second cooldown, so you, in between your go, you can use Mass Entanglement once again just to use it as spells, and then you have it up again with your root beam. It just rotates in really well with your rotation. And also you could use this in RBGs as well, because it roots everyone around the target used it on, everyone around 15 yards. So pretty much in RBGs, you could tell that melee are always together, so you could just use Mass Entanglement and literally root everyone. There's a conduit that decreases Mass Entanglement cooldown as well, which is this one right here, Born of the Wilds. Decreases it by 16%, which I believe makes your Mass Entanglement a 23-second cooldown. Really good talent, really beneficial in PvP. Now Mighty Bash is only good in arenas when you're facing a Resto Druid, because you cannot root beam a Resto Druid, or if you're playing a comp that has a lot of CC and not a lot of stuns. So if you're playing comp that has a lot of CC, like Mage Boomy, which is an off meta comp, no one plays it, but if you're playing it, you need, I guess you could play Mighty Bash, but Mass Entanglement would come in more handy, to be honest. Mighty Bash, again, I think Mighty Bash is only playable if you're facing Resto Druid teams, because you cannot root beam a Resto Druid, because they can just shift out of it. So definitely play Mighty Bash in circumstance like that. It just depends on what you're playing. My preference is Mass Entanglement. So for level 40, to be honest, all three of these are good. If you're a Night Fae, if you're new to Boomy and you want to one-shot someone, you need to be Incarn. Incarn puts you in celestial alignment, which means both of your lunar and solar eclipse are active and you're doing the most damage. And it also gives you 10% more critical strike. It lasts 30 seconds as well. Uh, a lot Everyone knows that when a druid uses incarnation, they're about to kill someone. It's been like that for like so many expansions. This is just a strong talent. If you're a beginner, you need to run this. It's a lot of fun. If you're Night Fae, 100% you need to be incarnation, because Night Fae is literally about one shot with convoke spirits. Starlord and Soul of the Forest is more of a consistent damage in arenas. Incarnation in RBGs all the way, and in arenas all the way as well if you're Night Fae and if you're a beginner. But Starlord and Soul of the Forest if you are a Kyrian or Necrolord, because this is just consistent damage. Starlord gives you more haste every time you Starfall and Star Surge. So let's say I'm in combat, I Star Surge once, I'm getting more Astral Power, I Star Surge again. So it's 2 Star Surges and I'm already at 8% increased haste. If I put out another Star Surge, it's 12% increased haste. This just means I'm doing consistent damage, and this also lets me not stack haste as my primary stat as a boomy, which is really good. Because I could stack mastery instead of haste, which I'm not at the moment. I'm trying to get more mastery. So definitely run Starlord. Soul of the Forest. I would say Soul of the Forest is the least played talent in this row. This pretty much enhances your eclipses. It makes your solar eclipse increase your rat's astral power generation by 50%, and lunar starfire area effect damage increased by 150%. Play around with it. These two are definitely for your consistent damage. However, I prefer Starlord. But if you're one shot, if you're RBG, or if you just like one shot, definitely go with Incarnation. So for level 45, Twin Moons and Stellar Drift and Stellar Fire. So Stellar Fire, again, out of the equation. Nobody runs this. This is just a bad talent. Stellar Drift got a change, and people think the Stellar Drift is good because Starfall's damage is increased by 50%. It's really not. Stellar Drift is a damage loss. You cannot be running this because people think that this paired up with Starburst, which is a new talent, is really good, but again, it's just bad because Twin Moons is just really superior than both of these, because as a boomy, the one thing you're doing a lot in PvP and RBGs is you're putting out dots on everyone in the team, right? And your dots, when they take damage and they do more damage than they're taking, is when you're getting astral power. And Twin Moons just enhances your Moonfire and makes it where if you use Moonfire once, everyone around 15 yards of that target is getting infected by or getting the Moonfire debuff. So Moonfire and Sunfire work alike. So if you're playing melee cleaves, you only have to press this like once. You only have to press each dot once, and they spread to whoever's near, pretty much. Twin Moons is better because, again, more damage, more sustained damage. If you're done Stellar Drift, it's a damage loss. I know in my PvP guide, or not in my PvP guide, sorry, in my PvP montage, I was running Stellar Drift in random battlegrounds, and if you're, messing around in random battlegrounds, run Stellar Drift for sure, because it's fun. You could put Starfall down and you just run around free casting like a mage. However, it puts Starfall on a 12-second cooldown, and that's why it's a damage loss. Even if you're running Starburst, you need to be spamming Starfall to proc more Starbursts, and if Starfall is on a 12-second cooldown, then literally that's a damage loss. So don't run this unless you're messing around in random battlegrounds, which I was in the PvP montage I did. Solid Drift, again, out of the equation, don't even think about it. Go with Twin Moons if you're serious. If you're doing RBGs or any arena content where you're pushing rating and you want to do good, definitely run Twin Moons. So for level 50, I want to say all three of these are viable. Even with the new moon buffs, they buffed the spell by 33%. It is still bad. I hate to say it, but this is like one of my favorite talents, but it's still bad in PvP. Again, in my PvP montage, I paired Incarn with Stellar Drift with New Moon, and that's how I was doing the one-shots. But that was in random battlegrounds, not rated. In rated, that will not happen because teams are way better, and getting these off is really hard. And it's, again, just a huge damage loss. Definitely stay away from New Moon if you're serious and if you want to push rating. If you're Night Fae, Kyrian, or Necrolord, you want to be Fury of the Elune, because again, remember, as a boomy, your astral power is your best friend, because with astral power is when you do damage, and Fury of the Elune lasts 8 seconds and it generates 40 astral power. Generates 40 astral power over 8 seconds. Look at that, I'm getting astral power. And it does a good amount of damage as well. It does AoE damage, so whoever you use it on, if there's someone nearby, it does damage to them as well. So Fury of the Elune, if you're a new player, definitely run Fury of the Elune. Now Solstice is only good if you are a Necrolord. Now in this meta, the game is a bit too fast paced right now, so Solstice really doesn't feel that great just because the game is too fast paced and melee are literally one-shotting everything. Solstice is good with Necrolord because Necrolord boomies are rot spec. They dot everything and everything dies when you go into Eclipse. What Solstice does is, during the first 6 seconds of every Eclipse, and you're activating Eclipses back and forth when you're in combat, it has Shooting Stars has a 250% more chance to fall. And what Shooting Stars is, it's your passive ability as a boomy. Moonfire and Sunfire, which are your two damage dots. Damage over time has a chance to call down a falling star, dealing 930 astral damage and generating 3 astral power. Remember that astral damage is higher if you have more intellect. Mine's a bit low because I'm still gearing, that's why it's low. But usually in PvP combat, this number would be dealing 1200 astral damage and generating 3 astral power every time you're in Eclipse. So you could see on a slow paced meta where Necrolords or Necro Boomies can actually play the game. The only reason why Necro Boomies are not the best right now is because, in arenas at least, is because the game's too fast and games don't last more than 2 minutes. But when the meta slows down a bit, which later on in the seasons I believe it will happen, Necro Druids will be good in arenas again, would be one of the best I would say, because they just dot everything. They go into Eclipse, and if you're running this legendary, you dot everything and you go into Eclipse, and everyone's just taking damage from Shooting Stars. You're doing insane consistent damage, plus you're getting a lot of astral power as well, which means you're dumping out Star Surges consistently. So Solstice if you're Necro Druid, Necro Boomy, Fury the Elune if you're Convoke / Night Fae or Kyrian. Alright, and for your PvP talents, you have a lot of options. One thing I like about Balancers this season is that they added and changed a lot of the PvP talents, and there's a lot of them are useful in different scenarios, and I like that. However, the main talent you should always be running is High Winds. High Winds pretty much enhances your clones. Clone leaves the target reeling, reducing their damage and healing by 30%. So if you think about it, you could use High Winds and Cyclone as a sharpen effect. So like a MS effect, right? So you could clone someone, let's say you're in threes or something and you're facing a Red Pally, you could clone the Red Pally on their wings, and after the clone is done, for 4 seconds, they're dealing 30% less damage. This is really good for peels. And also you could clone the healers, and when they come out at the clone, they are doing 30% less healing. This is a really good talent and a must for boomies, considering that Cyclone is one of the valuable spells that a boomie should always use, and one of the valuable spells they have. And Alkin Adept is another talent I run, mostly for threes. In RBGs, I don't really see this that important, but it could be important. It could help you out in RBGs, but not really. There's other talents you could run in RBGs, but Alkin Adept is really good in 3v3s or 2v2s arenas because boomies tend to get trained a lot this season. So this pretty much, if they're training you and you get 2 stacks of Alkin Frenzy, that means your Cyclone is like a 0.5 second cast. It's so quick. Melee or whoever you're facing usually don't kick it in time, because this pretty much, if you have stacks of it and if you're getting trained, you will 100% of the time you will have stacks of it. You can just Cyclone someone instantly. Well, not instantly, but the cast time pretty much feels it's an instant clone. And not only clone, it enhances your roots as well. So this really goes in well with High Winds, and it's really good in 3v3s. Now Moonkin Aura, this really depends on what kind of comp you're in. So for me in 3v3s, I run Ellie Boomy, and I could use this Moonkin Aura and help my Ellie out and my healer with crits as well. What Moonkin Aura does is every time you Star Surge, it increases your critical strike chance by 4%, and it also increases your allies within within 40 yards, and it lasts a long time to 18 seconds per charge. So when you Star Surge someone, I get the 4% critical strike chance, and my team also gets it. And I could just re-add this. It doesn't reset the cooldown or anything. And I could start surge again. It goes up 17 seconds. 8%. I start surge again, 12%. Now 12% increased crit is actually insane, especially for Ellie Shaman this season. Boomy Ellie is not a bad comp. It's pretty hard to play, but if you play it right, you could definitely have fun, and that's why I run Moonkin Aura. Some other talents I run are Celestial Alignment, or Celestial Guardian, sorry. This is really good when you're facing casters, such as Fire Mages, Shadow Priest, even sometimes this is also good when you're facing melee as well, because boomies are so squishy. If you're facing melee with a Shadow Priest or a Disc Priest or something, this could be helpful because this reduces all magic damage you take by 10%, and you can also cast Moonfire while you're in bear form. This is a pretty good talent when you're facing casters, anything that does magic damage, but if you find yourself in a situation where you're dying a lot into melees too, I would try this out because there are some melee that do magic damage this season as well, and this is a really good talent when it comes to that. Crescent Burn, I don't really run a lot. This is not really, well, I shouldn't say it's useless. It definitely buffs your Moonfire damage. Crescent Burn, if you're Night Fae or Kyrian, you don't run this. If you're Necrolord and you're focusing on dot damage with your time circle of life and death legendary, this could be helpful. In RBGs, it's definitely helpful if you're Necro for the rot damage, but not a lot of teams prefer Necro Druid in RBGs anyway. In arenas, it could definitely be helpful because your Moonfire is dealing extra damage. The one thing I don't like about this talent is that I have to press Moonfire twice on a single target for this effect to really come in. And that's the one thing I don't like about it. So yeah, this, I wouldn't really prefer this. Try it out if you're Necro, see if you like it or not. And Moon of Stars is just, nobody runs this. This is pretty much a useless talent. Especially, you don't really cast much as a Boomy anyway, so you're getting interrupted no matter what, and 10-second reduction really doesn't, you know, help at all. Moonkin Aura, as I said, really good. Dying Stars is really good in RBGs if you're playing Necro Druid, where your dots are getting dispelled and you get Astral Power from it, which means you're doing more damage output. Deep Roots is really good as well if you're facing casters or melee and they don't train you and you get to root your team. Deep Roots is really good when you're playing Ellie Shaman Boomy or Shadow Priest Boomy, because they both, Shadow Priest and Ellie Shamans, both have Dispel Protection. Dispel Protection means if you dispel a Shadow Priest dots, you're getting feared. If you dispel a Ellie Shaman's dots, you are getting knocked up into the air and taking damage. So Deep Roots is really good. Depending on what circumstance you're playing, what Deep Roots does is your Roots does not break the damage. It says 250%, but every time I use it, whoever I use it on usually sits the Roots almost for its entire duration. So this is really helpful in that way. Fairy Swarm is really good when you're facing RMP, Rogue Mage, or even when you're facing melee cleaves, because as I said, this season's really fast. It's a fast meta, and people are dying so quick. Fairy Swarm would definitely come in handy when you're trying to disarm a melee to help your team out and peel. Now, Starburst, the new talent, the hot topic of the season. Starburst is really insane. In RBGs, there's at least one Boomy that always runs Starburst because Starburst is so good and your teammates can pick up the Starburst and run it into people. Well, it's a PvP talent anyway, so I can't really show you how that works, but if you check out my PvP montage I put out for Balanced Druids, it's like the first video I put out this season. You could see me grab my Starburst and run into people and pretty much blow them up into the air, and it deals damage to them. Starburst is really helpful in RBGs for sure, and in arenas as well. In 3v3s, if you're in Blade's Edge map and you're facing melee, Starburst is so good in that map because you play on top of the bridge and you press Starburst and all the Starburst procs, it spawns on the bridge, and it's such a little amount of space to move it. You're always finding yourself in a place where you're knocking up the enemy team. I really like running Starburst in that map because my Ellie and myself, we all have these crazy talents that, you know, interrupt or take a global away from a teammate or from an enemy player, which is really good. Starburst is also good when you're facing melee teams. If you're, let's say for example, you're in a situation where your healer is dying, and if you're playing Starburst, you can just tell your healer to run into that Starburst, pick it up, and what that's gonna do is it's gonna pretty much buy your healer 1 or 2 globals, because the starburst is gonna knock the melee into the air and waste a global, right? So that's a global your healer can use to use a heal or use an instant heal, right? It could be really helpful in that way. And yeah, this is a great talent. I really like this. It's really fun too. Protector of the Grove. This is a good talent too. Mostly ran in RBGs, but I would say this season not many people run this, because there's other talents that's just way better. But this is a really good talent if you're trying to get some off heals into your team, or in RBGs if you're trying to off heal someone. But for me personally, I don't really like this. I don't really see much use for it, considering every other talent is like so much better. And yeah, Thorns is really good. Most people run Thorns in arenas. In RBGs, not really, because there's other better talents. Thorns is really good when you're facing melee. So if you're facing any melee teams that cannot purge slash dispel, Thorns is really good, because Thorns does a lot of damage and it lasts 12 seconds. So if you're facing a melee team and they're training your healer, you put Thorns on them, and if they're still attacking into Thorns, their HP is gonna go down so fast, and it's a offensive opportunity for you to kill them. This is a really good talent when you're facing melee. Other than that, that's pretty much all the PvP talents. There's a lot of good talents this season, which I like, and a lot of different playstyles with them. Play around with it, see what you like the most, and yeah. Okay, so let's talk about stats here. Now, as always, versatility should be your highest stat. Versatility is just really important in PvP, because it increases the damage you do and decreases the damage you take, which in a player versus player combat, this is really needed. This season especially, because everything's hitting really hard. Damage just feels really overtuned, and versatility can help you out. You know, it could help out slow down the pace of the game a bit. So definitely stack versatility as high as you can. Now, the next stats you should stack is haste and mastery. Now, a lot of people make the mistake of stacking haste to like 26% or 20+%, which is really bad, because haste is a damage loss. As a boomy, you don't really cast much. You're always applying dots, and your most hitters are instant cast anyway. And the only thing you cast is Wrath and Cyclone. And for Cyclone, with the Alkin Adept talent, even with 0% haste, I could get a 0.7 second cast time on Cyclone with 0% haste if I run Alkin Adept talent. So I don't really need haste. My preference for haste is be somewhere around 15% to 20%, which is not really hard this season, or not really hard to get, because a lot of pieces have haste. So have a haste somewhere around 15 to 20%. Don't go above 20%, because again, it's just useless. You could stack mastery instead of haste. Mastery is really good, and I'm trying to stack as much mastery as I can, because mastery, again, it enhances my eclipse and it enhances my damage. So solar eclipse increases nature spell damage, and lunar eclipse increases arcane spell damage. So technically, at the end of the day, you're doing a lot of damage, because you're gonna be in an eclipse always. You have to be. That's a boomy's rotation. And yeah, so main stats, focus on versatility always, and then haste, and then mastery. You don't really need crit at all, because again, you got talents to back it up. You got Moonkin Aura, which increases your crit by 12% when you're in PvP combat if you stack it up. So you don't really need crit. You also got a legendary Balance of All Things, which also gives you crit. So you don't really need much crit at all. Just focus on versatility, and then your haste, and then mastery. Versatility, if you got versatility and haste figured out, try working on building up your mastery. Mastery is really good, and haste is really good, versatility is really good. So these three are your main stats that you should focus on. Alright, so let's talk about the Covenants here. So I'm seeing 3 Covenants so far in Shadowlands Season 2, and those are Kyrian, Night Fae, and Necrolord. Okay, I'll talk about Night Fae first. So obviously Night Fae is the famous one, a popular Covenant that a lot of balanced Druids run. Night Fae is really good and the best Covenant to run in 10v10s. If you're a RBG, if you're a rated Battleground fan or a rated Battleground player, definitely be a Night Fae Boomy, because Night Fae Boomy is the most qualified for that bracket, just because of Convoke the Spirits. Convoke the Spirits pretty much brings in that extra burst in team fights, and you get the secondary Covenant spell, which is you pretty much go into this travel form, kind of like a typical Whelpin form. You could change it actually. You get to blink around like 5 times, so high mobility and bursty as well. Convoke the Spirits is definitely recommended if you're a beginner. If you are new to Balanced Druid, definitely try out Night Fade because Convoke the Spirits is really good and fun to play with. The best legendaries if you're Night Fade at the moment is Balance of All Things, because when you hit Incarn and you Convoke, you're getting that extra crit chance. This got nerfed, however, this is still good. If you want big damage, definitely do Balance of All Things, especially in arenas. If you're just trying to one-shot someone, this is a really good talent, even with the nerfs. If you don't like this talent, you could try out Time Worn Dreambinder as well. What this does is it increases your Star Surge and Starfall's damage and reduces its cooldown by 10%. This is really good for that consistent damage, or that, you know, extra Star Surge damage. Other than these two, there's also the new Covenant legendary, which is really good as well if you have it. You unlock this at Renown 48. I'm not Night Fae right now, which is why I can't show you any of these spells, or which is why I don't have this legendary, but Convoke the Spirit's cooldown is reduced by 50% if you're running this legendary, and its duration is reduced by 25%. The duration really doesn't matter, it's not that big of a deal. The main thing that a lot of people run this legendary is because of the 50% reduced cooldown. This makes Convoke the Spirits be a 1-minute cooldown instead of being a 2-minute cooldown. So this is really good in arenas as well if you're a Convoke Boomy. So definitely try Celestial Spirits and Balance of All Things and Time War Dreambinder, I would say. Circle of Life and Death is also good if you just want to dot everything and do like a dot cleave, but with the Night Fae Covenant playstyle, this just doesn't fit in that well. So definitely Balance of All Things, Time War Dreambinder, and Celestial Spirits as I mentioned, but you know, if you want to try Circle of Death out and you like it, try that out for sure. And then there is Kyrian. I am Kyrian at the moment, and Kyrian is really good this season if you want to push 3s or 2s. It's really good in arenas because Shadowlands Season 2 is such a high burst, fast paced meta. And being a bursty druid, a reliable bursty druid, is really important, and that's why I chose Kyrian, and I would recommend Kyrian if you want to push arenas. Kyrian's not really that good for RBGs, Night Fae is still better, but for arenas, Kyrian is the best Covenant, and I'll explain to you why exactly. So Kyrian gives you Lone Empowerment, which increases, there it is, which increases your damage done by 15% for 10 seconds, and this is on a 1-minute cooldown, okay? So this goes in perfectly well with your Root Beam. Root Beam's a 1-minute cooldown too, and you can just dump Star Surgers, and your Star Surgers crit for at least 8k to 12k crits, right? If you run the right legendaries and everything. This is just a really bursty Covenant. It lets you stay aggressive, and outside of your cooldowns, you could pretty much just dot everything and just clone and peel for your team. Every minute you have that big one-shot potential, which is really insane in arenas. For your secondary spell, you get this Serenity, this Phial of Serenity potion, which your Steward gives you. Pretty much what this is it restores 20% health and removes all decreases, poisons, and curses. So this is pretty much a better version of a health stone, right? Especially considering how fast this meta is and people die quick, you could definitely use this as a defensive cooldown as well. Now the best legendaries for this Covenant is Time Worn Dreambinder, because again, if you're Kyrian, you're relying on your Lone Empowerment Star Surge goes every 1 minute, and running this legendary lets you shoot out more Star Surges and increase damage on Star Surges. So if I line this up right, my rotation's usually like Root Beam, and then I always use Fury of Elune, and then I use my Lone Empowerment, and I can dump at least 6 Star Surges for free without having to cast anything, guys. That's insane. And if I cast a Wrath or a proc of Starfire in between, I could do it 7 to 8, right? 8 Star Surges in 15 seconds is insane. You can imagine how much damage it does, and why a lot of boomies play Kyrian now in the high ladder. And yeah, Kyrian's really good in that way. Another legendary you could run is Circle of Life and Death. Now this is really good for Kyrian. I prefer running this sometimes because outside of my lone empowerment, I really don't have anything, right? I don't have much damage, so I'm usually in a situation where I'm cycloning and just peeling for the team. If I run this legendary, if you just have dots on everyone, and I'll be getting absolute power through it, and I could just keep doing consistent damage, which is why I like it a lot. And also my dots do a lot of damage. It's really dependent on what comps you face. Actually, if you're facing like a melee clay, you would want to be Timeworn Dreambinder, uh, where you're gonna get to one-shot people. But if you're kind of facing comps that are slow, you can definitely run Circle of Life and Death. These two are the only legendaries that are good for Kyrian. Balance of all things is just not that beneficial, considering these two are just way better. And also the Kyrian Covenant legendary, not that good because it just does nothing for you in PvP. It's kind of useless in my opinion. So if you're Kyrian, definitely play Timeworn Dreambinder or Cycle of Death. So now let's talk about Necroboomies. A really solid spec last season towards the end was when it got discovered. Necroboomy was really good with the rot damage, so you just dot everything and you go into Eclipse and everything dies. It was a rot damage spec, and towards the end of the season for Shadowlands Season 1, the pace slowed down a bit because everyone got more gear, more stamina, and more versatility. When it slowed down, Necroboomies were really good in that meta. However, in this meta right now at the moment, Necroboomies are not really the best, but you can still play one. You can still play one the Gladiator, I would say. To push rank 1, it would be a bit hard considering Kyrian's hard, but Necro's still good. So Necro playstyle is pretty much you dot everything, you run the Circle of Life and Death legendary, which makes your dots tick faster, and you run this legendary and you pretty much use Moonfire and Sunfire on the entire team. Necro's only good in 3v3 and 2v2 arenas, by the way. In RBGS it's not really the best. So in 3s you pretty much dot everything, and you would run Solstice, this talent, and pretty much your basic rotation in PvP as a Necroboomy, especially 3v3s, is you go into arena, you make sure you put both your dots on everyone, and then you go to Eclipse. And then, you're doing so much burst damage, your shooting stars are falling most often, and the one thing I like about Necro is that with the spec, with this playstyle, your absolute power generation is always consistently going up. Consistent damage is really good for Necro. However, in this meta, it's so fast right now. Necroboomy doesn't really have that burst. It really does, but not really. It's more of a rot spec, and in this meta, it doesn't really fit in well. However, towards the end or middle of Shadowlands, give it like a couple weeks, like 2 to 3 weeks more, when people get max renown and more gear, I can see Necroboomy being really good. Necroboomy Shadow Priest, Necroboomy Ellie being really good in 3v3s. So for legendaries as a Necro, there's only one legendary that's fun for me, and that's Circle of Life and Death. Again, Necro, you're all about rot. It's all about your consistent rot damage. It's all about killing an entire team, going into Eclipse. Circle of Life and Death is the only legendary I would recommend. Timeborn Dreambinder, Balance of All Things, just doesn't work that well. Owner's Clear Vision also doesn't. If you're new to Necro, if you want to try out the spec, I would definitely recommend Circle of Life and Death. This makes your dots do a lot of damage. And this is about it. This is the only legendary I would recommend and play if I was a Necro Druid. Out of these 3 covenants, my favorite covenant is Necro Druid. I was Necro Druid when the season started. I swapped from Night Fae to Necro, and unfortunately it didn't go too well for me in arena, so I had to go back or try out Kyrian, and Kyrian feels pretty good in arena, so I'm gonna stick with it for now. But if the meta slows down a bit, I will definitely swap Necro in a heartbeat, because Necroboomy playstyle is my favorite playstyle. Alright, so I'm going to talk about the balance druid rotation before we call this a video. So as a balance druid, before you engage combat, you always want to apply your dots, which is Sunfire and Moonfire. So always apply your dots first, preferably on all targets, because as your dots tick, as you see, it's going to give you actual power. And as a Boomy, your most hitting spells come from spending this. So it's Star Surge and Starfall, which are your most hitting spells. Star Surge is the main one. So again, just make sure you dot everything. And then if you're new to Boomies, you really want to know how Eclipses work, okay? So as you see, you can only activate your Eclipse from your Starfire and Wrath. So how this works is, let's say you see a little number 2 number over here on your spell bar, and usually it's really easy to get into solar eclipse first. So if you want to get into solar eclipse, all you got to do is make sure you cast starfire twice, and after you cast it twice, as you see the numbers going down, and you're in solar eclipse. This means you're doing a lot of damage with wrath, and its cast time is reduced. So you want to usually use these eclipses to benefit your legendary, benefit your crit legendary, your balance of all things Lego, or just to stack up your astral power. So as you see, my uh, solar eclipse ended, so now it's time to go into lunar eclipse, and I'm in lunar eclipse now, and it enhances my lunar strike. So another interesting thing about eclipses that is really beneficial is when you engage combat, it's always easy to get into lunar eclipse first, because if you're getting trained, you have Alkan Frenzy, which procs your Starfire to be instant. So if you're getting trained or if someone's attacking you, that means you're getting instant procs with Starfire, so you don't have to fully cast a Starfire. So it's really easy to get into Wrath Eclipse first. Other than that, balanced rotation is really simple. Just get your dots out, and on your burst, you pop your burst, and then you just Star Surge. Star Surge is your main hitting spell. So as a balanced druid, you always want to work around with your eclipses, generate your astral power, and then dump all your astral power into Star Surge or Starfall, depending on what scenario you're in. And yeah, that's about it for balanced druids. It's really quick. Also, make sure you're using your Cyclone a lot. Cyclone's really good for the spec. A good boomy. Quite often a lot of RBGers and PvPers say a good boomy is identified by their crowd control done. So if you're cloning a lot, that means you know how to play boomy. Alright guys, so that is it for the PvP guide. I hope you learned a thing or two. This season is definitely quite an interesting season. It's really fast. I've never played a season like this. But hopefully this video and some of the things you learned will help you improve and achieve your goals for this PvP season. Either way, I do realize that I didn't cover conduits and soulbinds. I do apologize. It just takes a long time, and it's really hard to cover it if I'm not the Covenant. I know I could have used Wowhead, but I just didn't want to. It's pretty straightforward. I will leave links in the description for Wowhead PvP. If you're interested in soulbinds, definitely check that out for your preferred Covenant. Other than that, guys, if you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. It's a huge goal of mine. If you could help me get there, that would be really appreciated. And yeah, this video, I really didn't do a good job. I am aware of that, covering a lot. I would say my last PvP guide was better. I just tried to rush this, so if I did miss a thing or two and you have questions, please make sure to ask me in the comments below, and I will do my best. Actually, I will respond to all of you. And yeah, that's about it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and have a great day, everyone.